Hello, this is Chris Poulos. Welcome back to the Awake Show. Um, this is a talk about culture, about young people, and this show actually is aimed a lot at what people my age and younger go through, as well as other things. And if you saw the trailer, you would understand what I'm talking about. But if you did not, essentially, I am going to talk about young men and the crisis within them, and how the symbols of the collective unconscious, as Carl Jung says, what young men are into and boys are into, comic books, often show their inner ambitions, aspirations, drives, and why it's very much an error for people that are their parents or older or authority figures often dismiss that these archetypes as childish or not practical or something that isn't that important. And essentially, my point usually is on this show that we have a new system that's very unnatural, a post-industrial revolution system. It's very unnatural to the human psyche. It's often very unhealthy, and it's very competitive. It has easily written out any sort of understanding of altruism and love as the most important thing in life. It seems there's a little um, connection issues. Let me just quickly switch up my performance here. Hopefully that fixes it. One second. Let me just close this. So that is usually the premise of my show. And whenever we do that, whenever we decide to put money and looking good on paper and some arbitrary success standard, usually brought to us by the media, we often run into extreme neurosis and brokenness that just keeps compiling and compiling and compiling. And what happens there is that's why we have a mental health crisis. That's why we have so many issues in young boys and young people in general. Um, I don't know why people think that these issues are less important than just being successful, but it's taking a toll. It's taking a toll on our politics. It's taking a toll on our mental health. It's taking a toll on our happiness. And this is one episode to delve further into that. I'm just checking my stream again to see how bad the interruptions were. I think it's okay. So, today we're talking about the young masculine drive through these characters to the left of me. And I think that what I'm talking about here is a mixture of Freud's unconscious theories and Carl Jung's unconscious theories, which are both very interesting. But I need to define things, as a. How's it going, John? Good to have you here. As someone who's um, a theist, someone who believes in God, and someone who's very much into psychology and history, it's always important that you define the terms clearly. I might as well one day have a show just on defining terms. Another reason why people are so messed up is because they don't even understand the language and concepts that affect them in their given world, which is insane. I mean, for example, let me throw out this word, love. All right. Do you know how often love is just thrown around as any old term? And yet it's one of the most important um, concepts in human experience. I mean, that's pretty bad. John, are we having any interruptions? Let me know on the stream if we're having any interruptions. It seems to be going in and out from what I'm seeing in XSplit, but from what I'm seeing in the other video stream, it's doing okay. So just let me know, John. All right, so love, peace, beauty, joy, these are really deep concepts, and yet people throw them around in their while they're on a rampant quest for them. How do you know what you're reaching for if you don't even understand it? How do you know how to get there if you don't understand it. And again, this post-industrial revolution society has put out this image that happiness involves some kind of materialistic, artistic, upper class look to things, and you have a family, and you're well educated, and you have plenty of money to go around on lots of vacations. That's such a spread across the bread over so many different factors, and we just plaster ourselves onto that. Um, while at the same time, in many of the middle to upper class families that I'm talking of, that I'm a teacher, I see it happen, and many of them have really bad mental health issues, and they just can't get along, and they're really struggling in the domestic life. Yet they have really big houses, and they have like all kinds of gadgets and possessions, and both parents are at work, and the kids are at home usually, but with taken care of by the nanny or the iPad, and there's some serious loneliness, and then they're scratching their heads. They're like, well, I did everything I was told. Why do I feel so messed up? So it may be painful for some people to hear this, but we've been sold a used bill of goods when it comes to our purpose in terms of Western modern society and what makes someone happy or what brings them to that happiness. Excuse me. um, so you can check out other episodes on my Awake playlist where I go further into that, and I usually come to the same points. But this has to do with the shadow and the Freudian libido, both of which are very prominent struggles with young men, especially when you're developing. And so what you see on the right are two characters, oh, excuse me, the left, two characters, Spider-Man, everyone knows who he is, and then one of a little bit lesser known, but many kids are into this show, Ichigo, the guy with a sword to the left. And they both of these characters have similar problems with an inner darkness, but with different themes. And I think these archetypes are actually really good examples of what a young man could still be in. Like, what is young? Well, it depends on who you are, but I still feel like I'm young. I still relate with this stuff. Depends on how healthy you are and if you're raised in an environment that is very combative, usually the public school system, right? Um, and so you have the shadow. The shadow is not, when I say the shadow, this is a psychoanalytical term, and this is not does not mean evil. It does not mean necessarily mean evil. Excuse me. It does not necessarily mean evil. It does not necessarily mean that it's something that should be locked away with throw away the key. Something horrible. The shadow is a term, to put it to summarize, of a taboo or disliked personality by an individual or society that an individual suppresses or doesn't want to look at for whatever reason, a myriad of reasons. So that could be, for example, you could look at some people's talents and personalities, and I bet if you go up to, let's say, an artist, there's a high chance that an artistic type of person has a distaste for, a person who's very frugal with money, or some kind of financier or accountant. They probably would. It would probably be like nails on chalkboard to have them become an accountant. They would hate it, right? But it could also be a personality. For example, someone that is more introverted versus extroverted. Someone who's more assertive and dominant, and someone who's more passive, right? And um, I think that when it comes to this stuff, you have to understand that brokenness in you. Another premise is brokenness in humans is very common. This is something that although it's being is exacerbated by this awful live in and by this ignorance and even corruption being pushed through the media, it'll always be there. It'll always be part of the struggle of a developing person trying to reach towards a sense of peace, a sense of happiness, a sense of completion. That will always be part of it. So, classic case. Before they would chastise the bully and the victim together, you know, teaching someone who's being bullied how to stand up for themselves. That's usually a very painful process because people that are more shy, people that are not used to aggression, it's very hard for them to fight back and to stand for themselves. Okay, it might just be also how they're made or just the way they are, but it's necessary. It's necessary for even a more timid person to tap into a warrior spirit. I mean, you have to be able to stand up for yourself and stand against wrong in whatever way you can as a man. And boys and men understand that. Um, Very sadly, it's so badly fostered in them that you have, it's this painful process for a guy who's kind of passive to become more of a dominant masculine archetype. And of course, he'll never master it because that's not his talent. It's something he has to tap into that he doesn't really want to. Um, and then, you have the issue of that's the shadow, and then you have the issue of the libido, which is connected more to what I just said before. Um, the libido, the sexual drive is, that the receptors in the brain that have to do with our sexual hormones, the young men's hormones, that's connected to multiple things. That's another big problem with this post-Freudian. I don't know, like they're not even good with Freud, but post-Freudian dominance over everything, everything's sex. When you actually look at cognitive psychology, hi Liz, let me know if there's problems with the stream because I'm getting these flashing lights and buttons here again, even though John says it's fine. So I could use a third opinion. But testosterone and if you actually look at the biochemistry within a young man, it doesn't have to just do with sex. It has to do with his confidence. It has to do with becoming stronger. It has to do with happiness. Yes, of course, a lot of this evolutionary speaking, a lot of evolutionary theories say that men have to be strong and happy in order to protect a woman, which makes sense. I agree. I don't know about, I have different understandings of evolution. I don't believe in the original Darwinian model. But that's true. And so that is closer to the examples I'm showing here. These guys are superheroes, okay? They don't, this isn't the everyday person, but I'm going to take their struggles and apply it to the variety of people that live in the world, that are born every day, that will be raised into something. So first we have Spider-Man. Now, I'm not going to talk that much about him because, all right, so you see his regular costume and you see his black suit costume. So essentially, what happened in one of Spider-Man's adventures is this alien goo that comes down from space and it gets on him, and it's like a parasite. It's called the symbiote. It takes over his body, and he finds himself much stronger than he even is as Spider-Man. He's like he could take on enemies that he struggles with. He can take on multiple enemies now, and he is much more assertive. It's bringing out something dark and controlling in him, right? But it feels great. He's much stronger. I guess it's kind of like, I guess it's a good analogy for like taking say the brave Teutonic knights and other warriors from Ireland who fought back against them. So even that's a pretty weak point. So what we're going to, in order to stop that, the next Genghis Khan, we're going to shut down anyone that could potentially be the guy who stands up to Genghis Khan. Does that make any sense? And right, he's losing his sense of good or evil people. If it builds up people